own pet, but actually it's something that we see fairly commonly.
Okay.
So I wanted to kind of start by talking about what bladder stones are,
Right.
what can cause them, and then signs to look for
Okay.
that your pet could have problems. So bladder stones, essentially, just like they sound, are stones that form in the kidneys, the ureters, which is the tube from the kidney to the bladder, the bladders themselves, and anywhere downstream from there.
Okay.
And certain breeds are predisposed. So miniature schnauzers, unfortunately, are one of them. Dalmatians, and there's a few other breeds that, for whatever reason, we happen to see a predisposition for forming bladder stones. And one of the biggest things is actually diet. One of the things that we saw actually back in the 80s and 90s is in cats. They were making diets, form a certain type of urine acidity or urine pH, and we were seeing a lot of these bladder stones forming in cats. And then the food companies took a look at that and actually corrected it and try to keep now urine pH within a certain very narrow range. So if you have really acidic urine, you form one type of stone, and if you have really basic urine, you can form another type of stone. So it's kind of a situation where sometimes you can't win, but diet can make a big difference. Metabolic issues like liver disease, this is something we see in little Yorkies that have liver issues, especially these really tiny toy breeds that are born with congenital anomalies. Sometimes we'll see them form stones. Animals that get recurrent urinary tract infections, we actually know that certain types of bacteria can lead to them forming a stone, believe it or not. So a couple of weird predisposing things you wouldn't think about. And then the signs to look for. Blood in the urine, frequent urination is probably the most common thing. So a dog that normally was really well housebroken, now having accidents in the house or can't make it through the night. Inappropriate urination, those kinds of things. And also something you may not even notice, but if you're watching carefully, you might actually see a change in stream quality. So, instead of a nice steady stream, you see a spurting kind of a stream from your pet, which in a cat, probably obviously you're not going to notice, but in a dog, you might.
Right.
So we got a couple of cases I was going to kind of show you and talk to you about. This is Stella. This is kind of one of our clinic's sweethearts. She unfortunately has seen us a lot. In addition to having diabetes, pancreatitis, she's also had 2 surgeries, not one, but 2 surgeries for bladder stone removal. One was about 2 to 3 years ago. Here's a picture of her bladder. So you see all that bright white debris, looks like a galaxy. Those are stones.
Oh, wow.
Every one of those. So this actually was not her. This is just an example. But that's a bladder that's just chock full. And you can imagine living with that. It's just miserable. And most dogs don't complain. So in Stella, about 2 years ago, we found one type of stone. We went in surgically, removed it. At that time, she had a stone that was secondary to urinary tract infections. So the way we prevent that is by culturing the urine frequently and making sure that if she develops an infection, we catch it really early. Unfortunately, she developed a different type of stone about 6 months ago that we subsequently removed that was actually related more to urine pH. And with that, we actually have to put her on a special diet and keep her urine pH more alkaline, whereas before it was more acidic. So it's a little bit challenging sometimes. The other thing that we see, and which is something you wouldn't think about, is we see this in exotic pets too. So this is a California desert tortoise, and that big white structure right in the middle of the belly there, that's a stone.
That's
and
a stone?
That's
it's almost the
huge.
size of the tortoise. It's unbelievable. And we can actually remove that. So we actually make a square cut in the shell, and there's the stone outside of the tortoise's body. This is after he had recovered from surgery. We put this patch on there using 2-ton epoxy that you can buy at a hardware store, and then we removed that about 2 years later. And these are actually pretty common in tortoises because they tend to be chronically dehydrated, as you might kind of imagine, and they eat diets that are really high in calcium, which can lead to stone formation.
Wow. I know we just have a short amount of time left, but I want to ask you, how do you have to remove them, or do they pass?
So it
like
depends
they do in
if they're
people?
causing problems. In male dogs and male cats, they usually won't pass because the anatomy is smaller.
Okay.
In females, sometimes they will if they're small enough, and there are surgeries that can be performed using endoscopy to break up the stones so that they will pass. And there are certain types of stones that can be dissolved with diet. But a large percentage of these do need to be removed at some point. Stella lived with hers for about a year before we took them out.
Wow.
Because she was, at that point, not showing any symptoms.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, if you have a question about your pet's health, email it to askthevet@kcoy.com. Thank you, Dr. Joel Conn, and stay with us. We'll be right back.